Great to have you guys with us today. We're just going to be going over our introduction for new umpires and how do you want to get into umpiring. So, when we talk about this, the first question I always want to ask people is, why do you want to umpire? And it's not a trick question. There's not a right or wrong answer because as no matter what the answer is, as long as at the end of the day you care about doing a good job and doing it right and acting professional, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that does matter, depending on your answer, is where you're going to want to go in umpiring. So, for example, someone who says, I just want to supplement my income, I need some extra money to help, you know, I want to take it, I want a bigger vacation next summer, so I'm trying to, put a little extra away. Well, that person is going to be more interested in where they can make the most amount of money. Whereas someone who says, they just love the game, they might be more interested in where's the best baseball. So, then there's also, you know, people may end up getting kind of forced into umpiring for their kids' league, or, they have kids and they're trying to offset costs. But again, no matter the reason, at the end of the day, as long as you care about doing a good job and acting professionally, I don't care what your reason is. So now we're going to get into what level of baseball you want to do. And we're going to start off with high school. So when we talk about high school is generally about the highest you can go in umpiring without going to camps and clinics and stuff like that. Generally, for high school, you're going to get games through a local chapter or a state association. It really depends on your state. And generally, high school will pay the highest per game, although that is very dependent on the state. Where I live here in Texas, it does pay the highest per game. However, there's often usually registration fees and chapter dues and things of that nature in order for you to be assigned those games in the first place. And then you also, for high school, will have to provide all of your own equipment and uniforms. And some of the training, usually at least with high school, you'll at least get some training. Now, I should say that in general, this is also high, like everything about this, when it comes to high school, is highly dependent on the state. Texas, generally, when we get to the larger schools, you'll see some fantastic, fantastic baseball. And so if you're just looking for really good baseball, this is where I would want to go. Now, at the same time, you might be in a state where, just due to the way the population is spread out, you may not necessarily see the greatest baseball at the high school level, and that's totally fine. We'll get into some other options in a moment, but in general, high school is for most places in my experience, is the option for the highest pay with the best baseball. Although that does come with the huge asterisk that it depends on the state. Now, getting into our next significant level of baseball is competitive youth tournaments. So when I say competitive youth tournaments, I'm talking about things like USSSA, Triple Crown, National Championship Sports, 5-tool, Perfect Game, that kind of thing. So these are usually run through like assignment groups and companies. Occasionally you'll see them run directly through like a tournament director. So for example, like an example of an assignment company would be, if you've seen on YouTube the ejection video from John Galante. John Galante runs an assignment company called Tri-State Elite Umpires. So his company, he makes money by assigning games. Now, that's one way to go. You'll see that, if you try to go sign up with him, you're going to have to pay some fees to get games and to get trained. But generally, you're going to make your money back pretty quickly because, it's about middle of the road pay per game. That'll vary depending on region. And then you're also going to have to provide your own equipment and uniforms. However, I will say this though, for the youth tournaments, here you can also see, especially with like 5-tool and Perfect Game, you will see some amazing baseball. But it really depends on the specific tournament that you're doing. You'll also see some horrible baseball with some of these kind of boonies U-Trip tournaments. You'll see some really sketchy baseball. But again, it really just depends on where you are and who's running it. So this would be a great option for if you're looking to make some money, this would be a great option. And if you're kind of just looking for some good baseball, I'd try to stick more to stuff that's known and reputable to be consistently very good baseball, like Five Tool and Perfect Game and whatnot. But, you'll also see plenty of good baseball in these other organizations I've mentioned. Now, moving on to competitive and recreational leagues. By far, this is the most prevalent way to get into umpiring. And that's just because the sheer amount of leagues. For example, almost in general, most significant like towns and whatnot will have some form of baseball and or softball league. So if you wanted to get into umpiring, getting into it through one of these towns, either through their in-house, some places have in-house umpires like Little League. Other places will contract through an assignment company or a group like I've mentioned before. And sometimes, like in the case of Little League, it'll be in-house volunteers. And so, you can see some pretty good baseball, but this is usually just pure youth baseball. Kids out there having fun. And so usually it doesn't usually pay much, but at the same time, you're very rarely going to encounter having to pay fees and whatnot to get games here. So if money's a big issue, this isn't always a terrible place to start out. Although one drawback though is that usually these leagues will not have the resources to provide much in the way of training. So you'll kind of be on your own for seeking that out. However, there's also the option that in the case that it's a league where it's volunteer, it's not uncommon to see, especially in Little League, them provide the equipment to the umpires at no cost. But as always, make sure you're checking before you're assuming anything like that. Alright, so now we're going to move on to just some general things that I recommend everyone look for no matter where they umpire. The first and foremost of these is comprehensive training. And what I mean by that is you need to be, when you go to training, regardless of your amount of experience, going to training is always a great idea. You need to be seeing pitches in the cage. You need to be moving around behind the plate on a field, either simulated or on an actual field, to practice your plate mechanics. You need repetitions, because repetitions, when you get into a game, that's what will help you. Then field mechanics. It's not enough just to have a PowerPoint telling you where A, B, and C are. You need to be out on the field practicing moving from position to position. And taking plays. That's another important aspect. Then, rules training. This is where you might get some PowerPoints, but you need to be getting into the rules. And especially it's important to make sure that if you're going to a training about rules, there better be rule books and or citations. Don't just go to a rules training where they tell you, well, this is what obstruction means. No. They should be reading it from the book to you, and then you should be discussing what it means and the interpretation. Then, to me, the most important part of any training is scrimmages. You need to be getting out on a field in a somewhat low-stress environment that's still a game to get some practice. Put everything that you've done in training, put that into practice. Now, unfortunately, it's not uncommon for none of this to really exist. So if it doesn't exist, seek it out. Either look on this YouTube channel, Umpire Locker. Go on the bazillion umpire pages on Facebook and look for people who can clearly articulate to you what you need to be doing. Go seek out, there's some awesome online resources for rules and mechanics, and I'll probably have a whole video just about that at some point, but you can seek it out. It is possible. Then another important thing to remember is who is running the umpires and what is their reputation? Because this is where your experience can easily be ruined if you're working in a place where it's just politics. Nobody likes politics. It gets tiring very quickly, and especially when whoever runs the umpires or manages the league doesn't support you when it comes to you tossing people and, controversial calls. That's also a recipe for disaster because you're just going to hate it. If people won't, if the league that you, or however the place that you work for, will not support you and back you up, then you're not going to want to work there, and it's going to suck, and you're going to hate it. So that's important stuff to find out before you umpire. So it's not a bad idea to go talk to people who work in those organizations and find out what they think. All right, so now just a quick overview of what are you going to need when you umpire. And keep in mind that some places will provide some or all of this for you, but obviously check before you go and buy anything. And then Umpire Locker, we have a number of equipment reviews, gear reviews, all that kind of fun stuff on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check that out if you find yourself having to buy some for yourself. So then just a quick overview of what you're going to need for plate gear. You're going to need a mask, a chest protector, shin guards, a cup or pelvic protector, male, female. It doesn't matter. Even with kids throwing 50 miles per hour, you need to protect that. I can't tell you how many times I've seen someone when we were changing in the parking lot before the game tell me, "Oh no, I don't need a cup. This is 9U." Well, I have seen more than enough instances of that backfiring to confidently say that if there is pitching and you're behind the plate, you need a cup. Also, if there is pitching and you're behind the plate, you need plate shoes. Because even though it seems like that 8-year-old or 9-year-old that's launching 50-mile-per-hour mortars that are landing on home plate can't break your toe or mess up your foot, I, again, have seen it happen enough that I can say with total and complete confidence, you need plate shoes. And plate shoes just make you look more professional, which never hurts. Then you're also going to need a ball bag, a professional-looking ball bag, not one with the pockets on the outside, and a brush and an indicator. And then for a uniform, you're going to need a hat, shirt, pants. I also forgot to mention on there, you're going to need a belt, an officiating belt, a thick one to hold up your ball bag. So obviously, make sure you check before you buy. Make sure you know what shirt color, what style of shirt, color of the pants, hat, ball bag, etc. So make sure you have that nailed down before you go out and buy anything. Alright, so then just some final stuff to close out this video. Make sure to check out our new Umpire series. We're going to having a lot of videos that are going to be extremely helpful on mechanics, basic rules, things of that nature that are really going to help you feel prepared when you get out on the field. And remember this, it can get overwhelming when you're new with the amount of stuff people are telling you and worrying about, oh, am I doing this right or whatever. Just remember this. Everyone sucks to some extent when they start. Some more than others. No one is the same. And regardless of where you are, don't get discouraged. Joe West is one of the best umpires to have ever lived. And even he still has bad games. And this is a man who gets paid 6 figures every year by MLB to umpire. So if he's getting paid 6 figures as a salaried employee and he still has bad games and makes mistakes, you and I most certainly are going to have bad games and make mistakes. The key is to make sure that we turn those into learning experiences so that it doesn't happen again. And then to finish out, one of my favorite quotes about baseball ever from the official baseball rules, keep your eye everlastingly on the ball. Thanks for watching, guys. This is Umpire Locker, by umpires, for umpires.
Greg Gibson, the home plate umpire, motioning to both players.